The New York Knicks are trying to win an NBA championship, and they have a head coaching vacancy. Who is the guy they should hire? And I'm telling you right now, and you may not like this. This may not be sexy. This may not get clicks. This may not get you all worked up. But the answer is boring. That's what history tells us. I know you want something sexy. I know you want a sure thing. I know you want a guy who's done it before. But history actually tells you that it's boring that wins. The head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder is one of the best coaches on the planet. His name is Mark Daigneault. And guess what? When he was hired, it was boring. When the Boston Celtics promoted Joe Mazzulla to replace Ime Udoka, it was boring. And that's why Johnny Bryant is the guy. It's what they have to do. It's the guy with experience. It's the guy who knows the room. And it's the guy that's going to give you the best chance now to win it all. And I know that's boring and it's not really exciting, but that's the damn truth. Am I right, Tiki?
No, you're right. And it's really, people still are talking about Tom Thibodeau because it feels like it happened, the firing happened really quickly and maybe not justified because look at what he did for us. Look at where he brought us, the culture and everything else that he created in a very short time. But the reality is that just like, maybe more so than hockey, but just like in hockey and the NFL, you don't get a lot of time.
Right.
You get 4 or 5 years, and if there is any doubt, then they're going to move on to somebody else who has less doubt about winning or potentially pushing a team to win a championship. So you give Thibs his credit, but ultimately this was going to happen if he didn't find a way to win championships. And Leon Rose went all in and to hit the best of his, I guess, ability with trading the pick for Mikal Bridges, trading for Cat, and everything else that went on this offseason, the Jalen Brunson extension that kind of was team friendly, all that stuff. He did everything he could, and they fell short. So ultimately, you got to make another decision, make another choice. I know you love Johnny Bryant. I still think experience is going to matter, though. But I have no idea what's actually going to happen. I like Taylor Jenkins. We talked about this yesterday. He is a successful coach who is young, 39 years old, but kind of like Thibs. The reason I told that story about Thibs, because basically the same thing happened to him.
Yeah, he lost the room in Memphis.
Yep.
He had great success there. So if you look at it from afar, which is what I did when he was fired, I said, why would you fire this guy? But the problem is it's not about resumes when you hire or fire a guy. It's about the simple question, can you get to the next level? And the best thing about Taylor Jenkins, Teak, to back up your point, and Johnny Bryant has this going for him as well, repped by CAA. And if you're looking for connections, they both have it. Here's the reality. Because Chris Big Mac McMonagle, who I love, he does the overnights around here, not only did 4 hours of this.
Don't forget his Saturday show as well.
His Saturday show, 9 a.m. here on The Fan. He also texted me about this. And he's been saying something that a lot of you guys have been saying. I've heard it a lot throughout the last 24 hours since this news came out, which is, we hadn't been to a conference final in 25 years. Why would Leon Rose give a rat's ass about Derek Fisher? Why would Leon Rose care about Stephon Marbury? My point is, I get, because I've lived this city, you guys have lived this city, you guys are fans of the Knicks, I respect that, but that's irrelevant when Leon Rose has to make the decision, how do I get to the next level? The Knicks sucking for 25 years has nothing to do with Leon Rose saying, how do I win a championship? And let me tell you what I admire about Leon Rose. First of all, he may fail, okay? It may fail. The Mikal Bridges trade may fail.
Right.
The Karl Anthony Towns trade may fail. And this decision may fail. The Knicks may not win an NBA title, but I'll tell you this about Leon Rose. He is putting it all on the table.
Right.
Last year, and this is when I went from Leon's pretty good, I respect him, to I respect him more than anybody in this town right now. Because Leon Rose could have sat back last year after the Knicks lost to attrition, Tommy's words, and said, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm going to run it back. Julius wasn't healthy. We were banged up. Yada, yada, yada. And you guys would have accepted it.
Of course.
And I understand that.
It would have felt fine because they were constantly in the playoffs and constantly getting past the first round.
Yes. And Leon Rose said, I'm trying to win it all. I didn't come here to just make the Knicks fun and good. That's not my job. My job is to win a world's championship. And we can disagree about the Cat trade, totally fair. We can disagree about the Bridges trade, like we're going to do here on the Thibs decision and who they should hire next. But it's all around the same thing. I got a window that's not that big, and I'm going to blow right through that window. And I'm going to move hell and earth and heavens to win a title. And so he got aggressive and traded for Mikal Bridges. He got aggressive and traded for Karl Anthony Towns. And what he decided to do in the last 48 hours, and we'll get into Dolan's impact on it as the show rolls on too, was how do I win a championship? That's my one focus. I believe that statement they put out yesterday. And they determined something that deep down every single person listening probably agrees with. They just don't want to admit it right now, which is you weren't winning with Tom Thibodeau. You know it. You just don't want to say it. And you don't want to say it because you're thrilled about what he did for you. And you can do two things. You can say and believe, I love Tom. He did great for this team. He's the best coach we've had since Jeff Van Gundy and Pat Riley. But then you can simultaneously say, but this is the best we're ever going to get.
Yeah, but
and we're not going to win.
Yeah, but that's not where you want to be ultimately.
That's why you move
Eventually, you get tired of it.
Exactly.
And so, look, don't cry river for Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau has been one of the best head coaches in basketball for his entire career, and he's going to make a ton of money getting fired. So don't cry for Tom Thibodeau. But Tom Thibodeau is limited because he's hard-headed in certain moments, and we've known it and we've seen it, and the consistent reliance on his starting five for critical moments of games ultimately cost them in this series. And so, to me, Tom Thibodeau, great coach, but Tom Thibodeau's going to be all right. The Knicks is what you need to worry about.
Absolutely.
Where are they going and how do they get there? And it never was going to be with Tom. So now the question is, who is it going to be?
So let's bore you, okay? Let's look at the last 6 NBA champions, why don't we? Let's try to look at who's been successful and how. Mark Daigneault's in the NBA Finals right now. It was a boring hire, and he looks like the best coach on the planet. He was an assistant. He got promoted. He's the man right now. Joe Mazzulla, an assistant, got promoted. He's the man right now. Michael Malone, who everyone's obsessed with, what was Michael Malone before the Denver Nuggets hired him? And yes, they were patient with him. And they finally turned on him, not because they didn't win an NBA title the year after winning an NBA title. They turned on him because there was bickering between him and the front office.
Yes.
And they ultimately felt this isn't sustainable. Steve Kerr's won a bunch of NBA championships. When the Warriors hired him, his only experience was sitting next to Marv Albert.
Well, he also was a pretty damn good basketball player.
And what does that mean ultimately?
Nothing, because it was like 15 years prior.
But that's my point. As a coach, he was a broadcaster.
Yeah.
And now we just look at him as, oh, yeah, he's a Hall of Fame coach. Frank Vogel was a bounced around also-ran when they won the NBA title in 2020. Mike Budenholzer was sort of similar. He had some success in Atlanta. They kind of hit their ceiling. They moved on. Nick Nurse in 2019, the definition of boring. All you have to do is look at Nick Nurse's face. It's the most boring thing in the world. But they promoted him after they flamed out early in a 59-win season, and they won. And here's my point by naming these names. If you're going to sit here, and I get why you want to do it, and think sexy, and think big, and think about the things that excite you, you're probably looking at the wrong things. You don't need to be excited right now.
No.
You just need the right guy. And it's difficult to find that right guy because if we're talking about assistants like Mazzulla and Daigneault and Malone before and Nick Nurse before they became great, it's tough to know who. So that's why you got to look for the right signs. But if it's about sexy, I think you're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah. Well, sexy just makes you feel in the offseason on paper that you have a chance to win a championship. But that doesn't mean anything when the balls are rolled out and you go start playing basketball at the end of this year. And so I hear you, but emotionally, as a fan, you can't relate. You don't know who Johnny Bryant is, but you don't know what kind of coach he's going to be.
I get that.
And so, but
it's tough. I get that.
But you do know what kind of coach Malone's going to be, or Jenkins is going to be, or even Van Gundy, who it seems like nobody really wants anymore. But you don't know. And I think as a fan, it's hard to not know and still feel confident.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Fact check me if need be. Outside of Phil Jackson and Pat Riley, who are two of the greatest coaches to ever coach, and by the way, they won their titles a long time ago, tell me the guy that was a proven successful NBA champion who then went to another team and won another NBA championship. Like, that's not exactly the most common thing in the world.
Rick Carlisle could win a title here.
But but he hasn't.
Yeah. Nobody's in the finals.
Okay, when Indiana beats the Thunder, spoiler alert, they won't, then you let me know. It hasn't happened. Like, you've had guys have success, but for the most part, I go through the names of those that have won championships. A lot of them were first-timers, and some of them were kind of like guys that wouldn't excite you. If they hired the equivalent of Frank Vogel or Mike Budenholzer, actually, if they hired either one of them, because they're both available, that wouldn't, quote-unquote, excite anybody. And the experience line, like, you need someone with experience. What experience did Daynold have? What experience did Mazzulla have? What experience did Malone and Kerr have? What experience did Nick Nurse have? Like, I think the things that will make us feel better because, they've got a resume, they've done this, they've won before, I think it's false hope. I think you just have to believe that Leon needs to do this because this is going to determine his legacy around here. He's got to find the right guy.
Right. So to further your example, the Doc Rivers of the world, who at one point were viewed as one of the great coaches in the NBA.
And then we realized the truth.
And then he goes to different places. Now he's in Milwaukee. And it's like, okay, is he actually really that good?
Right.
I think coaches fit the team that they're with. And if they win, it's because everything fell exactly right. The culture was right. The talent was right. The scheme that they were trying to employ offensively, defensively, it was right given the coach and the players that were there. But it's hard to replicate that because you're not going to find the exact same culture in this next spot as a head coach you go to or the right kind of skill from the group that you have you put on the court. So it's hard. And so you got to be, if you're going to do that, you got to be almost brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that these coaches aren't brilliant, but it's hard to replicate success in two different places in the NBA.
It is also going to be difficult to walk into this town and tell a fan base, actually you won't ever tell the fan base anything because there won't be a press conference, but you will telepathically tell the fan base, I have to go to the NBA Finals or my first season was a failure. Like, you're coming in here with an immense amount of pressure, and that's a part of the other reason why I really respect Leon Rose. Because Leon could have done the easy thing. The easy thing would have been to run it back last year, not to take all his chips and trade for a player like Mikal Bridges, right or wrong. It's not about defending the move. Right. It's about defending the balls. The same thing here. It would have been easy to just say, Tom's coming back. Hey, we got to the conference finals. But Leon Rose, who left a job in which he was making a fortune to run this team, didn't come here just for the paycheck like Phil Jackson did. He didn't come here just to turn the team around and say, gee, I'm successful.
I'm sure he's getting a nice paycheck.
He's getting a huge paycheck. But he came here to win a championship.
Yes.
And that's why I look at all the executives in our town right now. I look at Leon Rose and I almost smirk and say, boy, you got some balls. And I respect the hell out of it. Now the question is, who do you want? I know there's going to be a lot of people that are not excited about Johnny Bryant. You're not, enthralled by Johnny. I think it's more realistic today than even yesterday that he's going to be the head coach based on what happened today with Phoenix, hiring the former Nets assistant Jordan Knott to be their head coach. So right now, the road is open for Johnny. But I do want to read you something from Ian Begley, who after yesterday, y'all better trust. Because he's the most locked-in NBA reporter by a mile. For 2 days, he sat there saying, it's not a lock. Tom Thibodeau is going to come back.
Yep.
And most people just ignored it. Like, well, he's coming back. How could he not come back? Here's what he wrote about the candidates. Knicks executive Gerson Rosas hired Chris Finch in Minnesota. But the Timberwolves just reached the Western Conference Finals under Finch. Why would they allow him to leave? I agree with that, but let's start with Chris Finch. He's had great success in Minnesota. We have seen coaches leave. Usually you have to give up some compensation. Would you want Chris Finch to be the next head coach of the New York Knicks? Tommy, does that get you all hot and bothered?
I wouldn't say it gets me all hot and bothered, but I'm absolutely interested. I will call you back and we will set up a date, probably putt-putt. I wouldn't do it like at a public place. I wouldn't have you over. That's where I would go on a date with Chris Finch here as my next head coach.
Back-to-back Western Conference Finals.
Certainly impressive as far as the resume.
The other names that your thoughts on Chris Finch, Steve?
I mean, look, I think he's a good coach, obviously. I have no emotion one way or another.
I wonder what Kat thinks about Chris Finch.
Yes.
Oh, no, I wonder what Chris Finch thinks about Kat is the real question.
Yeah, allowed him to be traded.
The Knicks have to have plans that don't involve a current head coach leaving his team. You've got candidates like Mike Brown, Frank Vogel, Mike Budenholzer, Monty Williams, and Taylor Jenkins amongst the coaches with experience who are available. Of those names, and we mentioned Budenholzer earlier, he's won an NBA title, same with Frank Vogel. So if you're looking for the experience, if that's what you want as a Knicks fan, I've made my point. I think it's completely overrated. Do any of those names jump out at you?
I mean, Vogel won his championship in the pandemic with LeBron and AD. I don't know about that one.
Mike Brown had success in Cleveland, recently in Sacramento. Those are all coaches who've had success. They're not just available because they suck. They've all had success in the NBA.
But do they feel inspiring to you?
No.
That's the question.
No, to me.
That you're asking,
basically.
basically.
The only one of those guys that would excite me is Taylor Jenkins. You made that point the other day. I agree with you because he's still young. He's still emerging. And I could argue to myself that his growth from his time in Memphis will lead to an even better head coach in New York.
He's young enough that he's not stuck in his ways, and he'll be collaborative with the veterans that are on that team. And so, to me, Finch makes a ton of sense. And look, there may be deeper things with his firing in Memphis that make it feel less tenable, but to me, he had success. He's the winningest coach in their history, the Grizzlies' history. And so you know he can be successful. The question is, does he have what it takes to get to that next step?
Brown, Vogel, Budenholzer, Monty, or Taylor Jenkins. Does that excite you, Tommy?
I like Jenkins. Budenholzer, I think, is interesting because it would lay to the conspiracy theory that they have their eyes on Giannis and they fired Thibs because perhaps they spoke to Giannis and Giannis, I don't want to play for Thibs because I don't want to play, 50 minutes a night, not even though there's 50 minutes in a game.
Is that really what the story is going to be if they?
Oh, absolutely. No, 100%. If they trade, I don't think they are, but if they trade for KD or Giannis and they hire a coach, they're going to say that KD and Giannis handpicked that coach and didn't want to coach with Thibs. But those are the names I like out of that list.
And obviously Michael Malone. And for whatever reason, there seems to be a lack of interest. And I think the reason, I'm going to speculate on why the Knicks are not that interested in Michael Malone, despite what he did in Denver, is probably his reputation behind the scenes.
Right.
Like if you're Leon Rose, who's making such a gutsy move here by firing a head coach off of the Eastern Conference Finals and saying, hey, this is my go-for-it move. Because truthfully, it may be his job on the line. If they don't win an NBA title in the next few years and this all-in move doesn't work, there's a damn good chance that Leon's not here in 3 years.
By the way, you have to do your job. And by taking risk, you're doing your job. You can't be so busy, and this is a cliche that you hear often, mostly in the business world, so busy trying to keep your job that you don't do your job.
Oh, you're right.
And so he's clearly not doing that. He's taking the risk.
Big risks.
And you should. Because the only way you're going to get rewarded is if you do start taking risks.
Absolutely.
The status quo gets you knocked out in the second round or falling short in the Eastern Conference Finals like we just saw.
Absolutely. And my feeling on why there's a lack of interest in Malone is probably Leon and the rest of that front office says, we don't want to deal with him. Mm-hmm. Like he may be a good head coach, but a part of this process is working with the head coach, is the relationship that you have. And so I think that's why, because Michael Malone, I get why he's a popular name. He's a local guy. Like, it seems so logical that he would be it. He won an NBA title a few years ago. But I do think a working relationship is important. So those are the names. Now, when we come back, we'll get to your calls. We'll hear what Knicks fans want. Plus, yesterday we had some fun with the idea of Jeff Van Gundy. What have I told you? He's a real candidate. We'll get some interesting reporting on Jeff Van Gundy as a possibility to be the next head coach of the New York Knicks. Plus your calls, 888-808-1019.